Hi there, back again, 3 videos in 1 week. I am definitely saturating the market in YouTube videos with me in them. It was a small market to start with anyway, but now I've completely flooded it. But if you're a bit bored of me talking on at length, you can always stop watching at any time. Oh, everybody's turned off. Oh dear, that was a mistake to say. But, well, for those of you still here, I'm now back with my very long delayed, because I've been working a lot on the book, video thoughts on the 10th Doctor. Well, he's also, we now know he's actually the 11th Doctor and also the 12th Doctor. It's nothing if not convoluted. Of course, with it now having been a few weeks since I finished watching David Tennant's era, I have to think back in my mind to what his episodes were like. But luckily for me, that's quite easy to do because his era has never really gone away. Out of the new series Doctors, he is the Tom Baker. Certainly, indeed, overall, he vies with Tom Baker for the most popular out of the entire lot of them, by a considerably large margin. He's the iconic one of the new Doctors. His silhouette is one that's instantly recognisable, much like the long scarf is for Tom. Sort of as a sign of how ingrained into British consciousness the 10th Doctor is, recently a trial has launched for part work, basically collecting the Doctor Who magazine archives about the making of every Doctor Who story. Now, normally with something like that, you'd expect it to launch with something recent, but no, it doesn't start with a Capaldi issue. Instead, it starts with David Tennant one, not even a particularly good, well, that's unfair on Gridlock, not what would be your first choice to launch a series with, in terms of Gridlock and the Daleks in Manhattan two-parter. It comes with a big David Tennant poster, and the questionnaire for readers who bought it in the test area contains the questions: do you like David Tennant? And what did you think of our David Tennant Banks free gift? I mean, if everybody answers yes to yes, and I like it a lot about those questions, I don't know what people do, the magazine will do about that. It's not as if they can invent more David Tennant episodes. I don't know, maybe they're going to, you go to Photoshop, stick David Tennant into every Doctor Who story, the photos the magazine is using, in order to increase sales. But that's sort of a sign of how he is the big one. And of course he's the first Doctor we've talked about in a while who has done enough episodes that makes it impractical to talk about every single one of his stories, at least in just one video. He was, of course, the first one to do an episode that topped the British TV charts. Huge. I mean, the first Christopher Eccleston series was successful. The Tennant era is probably the peak of Doctor Who success on British television. Internationally, it's not quite the case. In America, it's more Matt Smith who sort of broke in there. But as far as the UK is concerned, and let's face it, we only care about the UK, David Tennant is a man. So what was the advantage he had over Christopher Eccleston in his 1 year and the actors who come since? Well, they're all good actors. Well, of course, David Tennant was a big Doctor Who fan, which is automatically an advantage, but he's clearly someone who's put a lot of force for years beforehand into how he would play Doctor Who, and he came loaded and ready to go already. Unlike Eccleston, who, as I said in my last video, hadn't quite got the hang of it by the end of his first year. Interestingly, recently Eccleston has an interview where he pretty much agreed with me on what his performance was like, which was nice. It's good you're a fan, Chris. Keep watching. So he knew how to hit the ground running. His performance is pretty much exactly right from the off, and you know, Matt Smith, you could see him evolve over his 3 years. I'm sure we will with Capaldi as well. Tennant has his part nailed, and his actual character doesn't change. In terms of Doctors who did a decent run, his how he plays a part probably changes the least out of all of them. He finds what works for him right off, and just plays it to the hills over the 3 years. Unfortunately, that means if you don't really like how it starts with him, your opinion isn't really going to change, or you can quite easily become bored of it as it goes on. But he really knows what he's doing right from the start. The other advantage he has, of course, is that the production team had found their groove after that uncertain first year. Second year, they know what works, they know what doesn't work. It's a show with a tone. It's not every episode is a classic, far from it. But that second season in particular, Christmas Invasion, it's up there with the best of Christmas specials, even though it's quite different in feeling because it's most of the Christmas specials are standalone. The Tennant era ones don't even tend to feature the rest of the regular cast, apart from that first one. It tends to be just a Doctor by himself with a guest companion. But yeah, that's a very strong opening, and it's confident that he's going to be great when he shows up near the end, and he does nail it. And they just know what they're doing. They know what works. New Earth, again, it's not the best episode ever, but it has a quiet confidence to it. It revels in how well Tennant and Piper play off each other, and most of that season does the same. Girl of the Fireplace is sort of a big award-winning episode of that season, of course, and it's a good episode. It's the first time for a series of Stephen Moffat is writing what we would now recognise as a Stephen Moffat episode. After The Empty Child was fairly straightforward in terms of its plotting, this is the first one to be all timey-wimey and paradoxy, and it's done well, and it's fun, and it basically establishes Tennant as the romantic Doctor, first and foremost, even more so than McGann had the chance to be in his one episode. He is good at flirting, he falls in love with women quite easily. He has a thing for blondes across his time in the show. And of course that made him very appealing to females of the audience, and men as well, let's face it. And it helped to cement his success too. And it's quite a key episode for him, because he had a relationship with Piper, a relationship with Madame de Pompadour. He's very much the lover Doctor, for want of a better phrase. And he does it very well. It's quite a good episode. Though my personal favourite from my second year is School Reunion. It's just such gleefully fun. It's got a nice idea behind it. Liz Sladen, her return is just fantastic. And again, plays off Tennant brilliantly. And K9. K9 wasn't that good during his time in the original show, if we're being completely honest. But he's fantastic there. Who would have thought, over 10 years ago now, before the show came back, that one of the greatest moments in the new series of Doctor Who would involve K9 blasting the crap out of Anthony Stewart's head. That's just, even his death is beautifully handled. So that's a great episode. The Cybermen two-parter is a bit weak. They sort of decide about how the two-parters in the Tennant era are generally, with one very honourable exception, not going to be all that, or going to be more easily forgettable than the other stuff. And the new Cybermen never really worked for me. They continue the noble tradition of the Cybermen being a bit shit, which is a shame, considering how often they have come back. But other than that, even something like The Idiot's Lantern, which is an episode people don't tend to like very much. I don't mind that. That's good fun. Love and Monsters, I veer more towards the side. It's a bit crap. But Mark Warren's very good at it. It only really falls apart when Peter Kay turns into the camp monster at the end, and the paving stone thing. I mean, technically, it's a good message about people can find love no matter what, and life finds a way. But on the other hand, it's a woman who's been turned into a paving slab. Over the practicalities of how the hell she's breathing and surviving, I think anybody who became just a head in a paving slab would choose death over that. Certainly over being a blowjob machine, which is basically what she is. It's really hard to see, especially in terms of Doctor Who, when back in the Five Doctors, having that done to you was the worst thing that could ever possibly happen and was a punishment for the villain of that week. Even Fear Her, though. I like 3/4 of Fear Her. It's only when it gets into the Olympic stuff that it falls down, because it's a cheap episode. It really can't do the Olympic stuff properly. I think even in 2005, they thought that lighting of a torch would be a bit more impressive than just having it in an empty warehouse, which is what it looks like. They don't really sell this idea that it's in a stadium at all. Even though, oddly enough, I think it was filmed at the Millennium Stadium, that bit. It just doesn't work. It looks like they're in a warehouse for some reason. And it's really got an ending where all those people disappear and nobody cares. But, yeah, it's not bad. And if that's sort of the worst of the season, it's a pretty good season. The end two-parter is, for my money, Russell T Davies' best of end of season final. It's probably the best end of season final Doctor Who has yet done since it came back. But it's sort of just silly for most of its run. Others try and be pretentious and epic with a big E. And in theory this is as well, but in reality it's just revelling in Daleks versus Cybermen and having huge fun with that and just enjoying it. And the fact is doing something that hasn't been done before. Even with the fact that all these monster mashups have... I don't know if you can hear my mom coughing there. That's the advantages of this new camera. You can hear every little sound. Even though that sort of monster mashup has been done with boring inevitability quite a lot now with a new series. So that sense of, oh, we've got these costumes, might as well use them to get their money's worth out of them feeling, that still works fantastically. It only really gets serious right at the end. And, you know, that stuff on the beach... As I'm a cold, heartless, unlovable man, that should annoy me a lot. But it works for me. I think it's genuinely quite emotional. Of course, Billie Piper was effectively presented as a lead character when the show came back. She's the only person who's been in every episode up to that point. It's a genuinely sad to see her go. And it's really the only big companion departure that really... They tend to be quite overwrought of a new series and involve... tears and crying and screaming. Now that is the only one that really justifies it because she was a lead. The others, it feels a bit overdone. It's like, yeah, you decided to, why not just go off and live the rest of your life quite happily? Does it have to be high drama every time? I think Freema, Martha, even though she's not my favourite companion, was the only one who had a nicely sensible departure out of all the others. Once the histrionics gets done a lot, it loses its impact by the third, fourth time. But here it works, it feels justified, and it's a fantastically beautiful moment. After that, when you're into the third season, once obviously behind the scenes they know Tennant works, I think the show gets the confidence perhaps becomes slight arrogance in behind the scenes. It feels like it knows it's the best show on television and it's swaggering about, and it can become quite unlikable at times. There tends to be increasingly stuff about how brilliant the Doctor is. Obviously Last of the Time Lords is especially bad for that, when everybody go, Doctor, Doctor. And, you know, a good show with a good lead character doesn't need to keep telling you how great the lead character is. So that gets quite annoying as the series goes on. So it loses something after that second year. Also, it takes him a while to find a replacement as good as Rose. Martha, the shame with Martha is, I really liked her to start with. I think Smith and Jones is a really good episode, a fun episode. Races along, introduces her well. The idea of a Doctor having to get over Rose does perhaps put her at a disadvantage because she's constantly made to feel like the fill-in. I can sort of see why they did it, because Rose was such an important character, but it does slightly work against Martha establishing herself as her own character. But for that first episode at least, that doesn't matter, it works, and she's fine for the next couple as well. Gridlock, I love Gridlock. The Macra who would have ever guessed they would bring the Macra back? Again, that's just a joyfully silly moment, and I think that's a strong contender for one of Russell T Davies' best scripts, and sort of it shows how he's better at doing the small, quirky stuff than the big, epic stuff. But after that, as her time goes on, there is the increasing problem of her basically being useless. I mean, there's no moments where you can point and say that is a moment that ruins this character. It's lots of little moments collectively that add up to diminishing her. Of course, not just when she was a regular, even after that, when she was a recurrent guest star. The fact that the Doctor would choose to take her back to hide, where he could have picked anywhere in time and space. When they hide, he chooses a place where she could be the subject of racism. They could have gone to Vegas for a month or something like that, or an abandoned beach. That makes her seem like he doesn't really give a toss about her. There's the fact that in that story, she is useless at hiding history. You know, their lives depend on this, but she's just going around going, "I'm from the future!" Oh, it's unsurprising it doesn't really work when she's so incredibly unsubtle there. There's how she manages to wake up the Master. You know, when she sees that timepiece, she could have either gone, "Oh, you're a Time Lord," or kept it to herself and gone and told the Doctor. Instead, she's just useless at bluffing. She decides not to tell him, but gives it away by overreacting to the watch in a really bad, ridiculous way. The Last of Time Lords is supposed to be a big story for her, where she walks the earth and does all this stuff. But then at the very end, you get the first, and this is really where her character starts to fall down, is it's the first of 3 instances where she forgets that she's a Doctor. The Master gets shot, the Doctor clearly doesn't want him to die, he's standing there holding the body, crying. Martha just stands there, doesn't go over to try resuscitation, doesn't even say, "I'm not going to help him." Then she does that again, later on, when her clone dies. She just stands there, she clearly doesn't want her clone to die, doesn't even check a pulse. Then when the Doctor's daughter dies, she just stands there watching, not doing anything. Even though she quite liked Jenny. And again, in each of those cases, there are reasons why she might not have been able to do anything. Alien, clone, whatever the hell Jenny was, I'm still not sure, clone alien thing. Her medical skills probably would be useless, but it is the fact that she doesn't even try, and worse than that, it's the fact that the writers forget that she's a Doctor in those scenes. It's abysmal writing, and if a Doctor's daughter as well, she manages to drown an alien that breathes water. It's a complete degeneration of a character, by Journey's End, reaches a point that you know the Earth is going to be completely safe because she has been given the job of blowing the planet up. As soon as you find out, it's like, yeah, you're going to... Earth's safe there. That's how you save Earth. Give her the job of destroying it. And, of course, she fails. The fact she just ends up randomly marrying Mickey is small potatoes compared to the rest of that character's problems by the time the David Tennant era is over. So that's a great shame, because Freeman's a good actress, a likeable actress, got bags of personality, works well in the early episodes, but the character ends up a loadstone. Other than that, the third season, the highlights are, other than Gridlock, Human Nature, which is a brilliant, just fantastic two-parter. It's a strong contender for my favourite David Tennant, which is odd. I didn't really, before I rewatched the series, I would have rated it, but not rated it as highly as I do now. It does a story fantastically. Everybody is brilliantly performed and written, and Paul Cornell should do more. I think he feels like he's moved on from Doctor Who now and he doesn't just want to be the Doctor Who writer, but he should be chained to a desk and prodded with cattle prods until he writes another one, because he never did enough. 3 episodes is not enough from a writer who got the show that well. Blink, of course. Blink is interesting because it introduces Weeping Angels, who are the new series monster. They are, it's Daleks, it's Cybermen, the big iconic one that people remember, at least in terms of recurring monsters, anyway. And they are brilliant. You know, some of the logic doesn't really make sense, and there's one incredibly bad scene in that episode where the grandson turns up in that bit from it's a bit from Back to the Future 3 where he turns up with a letter. And in Back to the Future 3, Marty has to run off and go save Doc, so the poor guy never gets an explanation. In Blink, the guy turns up with a letter, and then he just wanders off. It's like, why are you doing that? Don't you want to find out what all this is about? Isn't this of mild interest to you? No. You're just a terribly written exposition character. None of that had the idea that, oh, I'm going to kill you by making you have a really long, rich life in history is a bit silly. It's just fantastic. And when I went to the Doctor Experience in Wales a few months ago and did the tour ride thing, the Weeping Angels bit was scaring the living shit out of small children who weren't even born when Blink aired. They were just absolutely terrified. It's just a fantastic image and concepts, but works very well. And it's sort of funny, that's probably for many people the best David Tennant episode, and it's one he's barely in. And the rest of that season, most of it's okay, apart from this creepy and arrogant feeling to it. The Dalek two-parter's rubbish. The final, the secret three-parter that they did, Utopia, I love Utopia. It's just, again, fun. It's very much of a Gridlock style. Derek Jacobi is so good, and it's interesting, because the brief scene where he is the Master, he is unreservedly having it up, and it's not a subtle performance, it is full-on Eric Roberts. But does it brilliantly. What lets it down, that three-parter, is the next two episodes, where you've got the dobbing Doctor. It feels like David Tennant took a holiday. He's barely in it. And John Sim, I love John Sim. I was really excited when he was cast as the character who was obviously going to be the Master. Because he's great in Life on Mars, he's great in many other things. But it's let down by the fact that John Sim is not an innately camp actor. He just can't do it very well. Eric Roberts can be fine. Anthony Ainley can do camp well. Derek Jacobi can do camp well. John Sim, he just comes across as awkward and irritated, and a camp villain should be a bit fun, but he can't quite pull it off. And he just, it's like nails on a chalkboard, irritating. I think if they'd have gone for that more Roger Delgado style, reserved, sophisticated, cool Master, he'd have been able to do that very well, but it just is very annoying. And the whole thing where they try and give him a backstory and explain why the Master is evil is hilarious. We're going to give him some depth, and the depth is he's not just an evil genocidal maniac for no reason. No, he's an evil genocidal maniac because he's got tinnitus. He can, that slightly annoying noise in my ears, that's going to make me crazy. Really? Thankfully, later on they did a bit more with that when obviously somebody realised it was a shit explanation. That means that sort of sets a trend for the end of season finals being a bit rubbish and overblown and not really making any sense. Which continues into the next year. The Voyage of the Damned, Frank Fun Christmas special, Return of Catherine Tate. Now, if Runaway Bride, I didn't really like Catherine Tate very much. Thought she was a bit one note. Wasn't particularly excited by the idea of her coming back. Oddly enough, rather like Martha, the first episode was slightly reassuring because Partners in Crime, again, it's great fun. It's Russell T Davies a bit tongue-in-cheek and silly, which he's quite good at. The comedy plays off very well, and at the time I thought, okay, maybe Catherine Tate will work. As the show goes on, it just... No, she's awful. As she brings out the worst in David Tennant as well, it literally just becomes episode after episode of her going, Spaceman, I have a serious sad backstory. To be fair, a lot of people do like her. She's my mother's favourite companion of a new series. She loves the idea of having an more mature, grown woman as a sidekick. So I know I'm very much in the minority if finding her irritating and one note and really bad. But sadly, that's how I feel as well. I quite like the idea of having a companion who's a bit different from this young love interest sidekick. But really doesn't work for me here. Bernard Cribbins, on the other hand, is brilliant. Everything he does in this show is absolutely fantastic. He sells what happens to Don at the end far better than Catherine Tate does herself. And sort of the end of season final is... Oh, I think my friend Tom summed it up best as it's a 2-hour tribute from Russell T Davies to Russell T Davies. It's just a big love fest and a smug fest. It's characters going on about how great they all are. And then you get the occasionally overwrought emotional bit where Davros is going, Doctor Who, you're a bit of a cunt. Which doesn't really work when it's Space Hitler saying it. You know, I'm not a great person. I've done bad things. I've made mistakes. If Hitler came up to me and said, you are a bad person because of these bad things you've done, I would not be able to take that seriously. But the Doctor, he pulls a sad face and he goes, oh, maybe you've had a point because some people have died when they've been around me. Oh, well, you know, Davros, you've killed a lot more people than that. You're not really a moral judge here. And there's that really odd bit where the Doctor says, come with me, Davros, at the end. It's like, what? I mean, Davros is a companion for the specials. That could be interesting. You can roll about the galaxy together, a wacky psychic pair. But that's... Did you really expect him to say yes to that? That's very unlikely. That sort of ends the regular Tennant era on a bit of a damp squib. And of the other episodes of that season, Midnight is comfortably the best. I would say it is... I would say it's the best Russell T Davies script. And, you know, it's... As we point out to other people, that's a bit of a backhanded compliment, that the least Russell T Davies script is the best. But I would say it's not that unfair. I think it's him really focusing on what he actually does best. A small, focused, slightly silly, but at the same time with a touch of darkness story. I love how the Doctor is ultimately useless at the end. He fails, and that's good to see as well. You could argue... Well, it has been argued that the 10th Doctor's ego is his big flaw. Well, I would say that's reaching to find a recurrent theme. That's sort of perhaps seen something in the episodes that wasn't intended. I don't think they intended to be quite as smug as he comes over much of the time. Seeing him take a kick in there was kind of cathartic, and it's just very well written. And minimal Catherine Tate as well, which is a relief. Other specials after that, where sort of the big victory lap for Tennant. Next Doctor, great fun. Great performance from David Morrissey. It's a performance that makes you wish he had been cast as the new Doctor. Just lovable. It's a bit of a gimmicky title. Coming off the whole dull fake regeneration thing. Oh Christ, we talked about Jenny's End. I didn't even speak about Billy Piper's teeth. That was what the hell happened there? If she needs some dental work, fine. But when she just go away, the Doctor, fair living, the Doctor going to the permanent universe and sort it all out. That makes it even harder to take those stories seriously. But she's really... It's because we're slagging off Catherine Tate. She's getting her own back by coughing very loudly. I really hope that's been picked up. But the next Doctor... But yeah, if this video is too long and a bit boring, at least there's some amusing coughing in the background to liven it up a bit. The next Doctor, hugely fun story. I love the giant Cyberman monster that's stomping about. That's just greatly entertaining. And the woman from Malicus Angel, I'm not even trying to pronounce her name. She's just lovely in it as well. I've always quite liked her, and she's great as a big camp villain. Planet of the Dead, not as bad as people say, perfectly watchable, harmless. Waters of Mars, it's an interesting one because it's trying to do this big moral dilemma and sort of give the Doctor, again, another kick-in prior to his regeneration, but it doesn't really work because the whole thing seems to be like the Doctor needs companions, stop him from going too far, but if he had a companion there with him, they'd have told him to rescue the people as well. And I'm not sure what is going on with the woman shooting herself in the head at the end, because how is that going to keep history on track? She's going, oh, well, I have to do this because it's been established. But really what she does is completely ruin the timeline for absolute sure. At least if she lived, she could have inspired her granddaughter in the flesh, as the Doctor suggests. Now she's dead in her house. Now, how is that going to look to people at the time? The woman who's 30 seconds before was on Mars. Mars base blows up. Then she turns up at her home having committed suicide. She's not going to be a hero. She's going to be the subject of every possible conspiracy theory ever. There was also that odd bit with the Dalek as well, which where it's like, oh, it spared her because it knew of her significance. And it what? No, I think that story of the Daleks were going to destroy all of history. It's also quite exciting in the first Matt Smith season, because of Big Crack, that Dalek story now never happened. So that means that she never saw the Dalek, and that didn't inspire her to go into space. And did she end up shooting herself? I don't know. It's a bit of a mess of a story, which is a shame, because for most of it, it's quite a good, tense story that makes good use of a slightly odd idea of a monster that just gets you wet. Oh, terrifying, but it works. And it's just, and again with Murray Gold music at the end, it's not. It really got you. Oh, that didn't really work. Oh well. The End of Time is odd because it has many of the same flaws as Journey's End, but I like it a lot more. I think it's Russell T Davies in touch with his sillier side more than his pompous side. So there's a lot of nice stuff. Also, Bernard Cribbins is fantastic in it. John Sim works better as a master in this one because the master's not a big super villain. He's a desperate, crazy man who is acting on the hoof, and that works much better for the master as a crazy person than him being somebody with a big master plan does. And the whole idea of everybody getting his face is ludicrous, and he's done very, very well. But Timothy Dalton as Razalon, I mean, it's not an original observation again, but big New Year's Day television on BBC One was the master shooting Razalon with laser beams coming out of his hands. That was a thing that happened. How awesome is that? It's still a story with problems. Most obvious one is the Nia Smith stuff. Other than a joke about the X-Files movie with his book being called Fight the Future, that character contributes nothing. He gets forgotten about after the first half. He gets arrested off camera at the end. That's how important he is. It would have been much tighter script if it had been Lucy Saxon and managed to escape from prison and use her family's money to activate the Ark thing and revive the Master as someone who was legitimately on his side. Rather than use an already established character with a history, it would have worked better when they introduced some random bloke in at the end. But mostly I quite enjoy it. It's not the best top tier new series Who from anybody involved, but it's just quite fun. And I like the victory lap thing at the end. Yes, it's indulgent to an extent, but it's worth remembering that Tennant is the first properly established Doctor to get an actual proper regeneration story since Peter Davison. Obviously Colin didn't get to meet his, Sylvester only got his years later, so did McGann. Eccleston, we knew he was going weeks before he left, so he didn't really get a chance to bed in properly. But this is a Doctor who'd been around for about 4 years basically by that point. No one was entirely sure whether they'd be able to recast it again with any success after he made such an impact. Them celebrating the cast and the regulars was earned, I think. And most of those bits are quite good fun. However ludicrous Mickey and Martha being married is, that's a nice little sequence with Sontaran. The Captain Jack bit is nice. The Sarah Jane bit is quite heartbreaking, of course, because that's knowing what would happen. That's her last appearance in Doctor Who itself. So that brings even more of a tear to the eye now than it did at the time. And it's just a lovely little scene. And the regeneration, yes, it's big and ludicrous. They've got stuff, but yeah, it works. I think the only problem with it is that Matt Smith has too much to do at the end, because after that big Derry telling goodbye, you're kind of drained, you're ready for the episode to end. You don't need Matt Smith going on for a couple of minutes. One line of dialogue and then grabbing the console and going Geronimo would have been enough. He easily had plenty of time to establish himself in his first episode anyway. But, no, not a bad final. And overall, the Tennant era is fun. It mostly is at least watchable and entertaining. It's made by people who know exactly what they're doing. So there's very few moments where you think, what the hell's all that about? There's only one episode I would say is completely outright terrible, and is in fact the worst episode of the entire new series to date. The only advantage it has over bad stories from the classic series is that it is shorter, and that is The Doctor's Daughter, which is just an incredibly stupid 45 minutes of television. For the fact you get a clone that has lipstick on, I think there's a bit of technobabble explaining how she's a female clone of him. But it's just a weird idea that he is adverse to the idea of Donna and Martha calling Jenny his daughter, and they have to bring him round to that when he was the one who, when she appears, he goes, she's my daughter. Well, you should have done that, really, if you didn't want them to call him out for the next hour. To how Catherine Tate is really annoying in this one. To Martha drowning the alien and forgetting she's a doctor at the end. To a really stupid way Jenny gets shot, and they did revive her, thanks to Stephen Moffat's suggestion when he pointed out it was a crap ending, but she's never been back since. So frankly, she'd been better off dead, because it's nice that David Tennant met his wife on it. Other than that, it's got no redeeming features. It's an episode that makes literally no sense. The clones are all only a few weeks old, or whatever it is, days old. Why is the lead one so much older than anyone else? That is something that, if it had said he was a survivor of the original ship who had gone mad, one line of dialogue would have explained that. No, it just assumes that everybody watching is a fucking idiot and won't notice something that blatant. There's a lot of that in the new series where one line of dialogue from a really good script editor would have fixed a problem, but it's really hard to think of a story where the entire concept falls apart that badly because nobody cared enough to make it work. And that's also the worst example of the new series being shot mostly on location with not as many sets. In the classic series, everybody goes on about wobbly sets and quarries. The big weakness of the new series, they've reduced that a bit in recent years. I think we've been more to sets for these things. But the big weakness of the Russell T Davies era is the amount of spaceships that look like abandoned factories. And it just looks awful, and it is awful on every possible level. But if one outright abysmal episode is your worst for 3 years and change of television, that's not a bad innings. For all they made him slightly insufferable towards the end, David Tennant was nevertheless watchable and engaging and likeable. And it's probably, depending on how Capaldi goes, the peak of the new series. And is likely to remain that for quite a while to come. I'll talk about Moffat in the Matt Smith and Capaldi videos, but it's not quite as assured now as it has been in the past. But overall, yeah, David Tennant gets my vote as the best new series Doctor. Let's probably spoil the next 2 videos, hey? Don't worry, I'm not going to slag off Smith and Capaldi. I've got nice things to say about them too. So that's the end of that one. I will hopefully do the Smith and Capaldi videos in good quick order, and I'm also going to branch out into doing other types of video, I think, on a fairly regular basis. I've got this camera. I think my book review yesterday went surprisingly well, considering how quickly I threw it together. Certainly, it's probably more coherent than this one. So maybe more stuff like that. Some of the more modern Transformers comics, maybe. Talk about the IDW stuff. Some of the Dreamwave stuff, maybe. We'll see how that goes. And as ever, keep watching, take care of yourselves, and I shall see you hopefully next week with Matt Smith. Be seeing you.